Peace, love, liberty, radio.
And the walls come crashing down as the war at home reaches your town. You have no choice, it's safe and clean. We all submit to the war machine.
So today is Wednesday. That means it's the day that I answer your questions. And I've got a really good question this week, and it's the type of question that I really like. It's one of the questions that causes me to sort of dig a little bit for information, and it's one of these questions that has many layers. So the question actually came from a friend of a friend on Facebook. A friend of mine posted a meme from Brave New Films that says 1,000 people per month are incarcerated in Alabama for not being able to pay their probation fines. Share because being poor should never equal a jail sentence. And the photo here links over to a documentary. I'm not sure if it's a full length or just a short documentary from Brave New Films called To Prison for Poverty. And the question is, why do they have fines in the first place? Now, I've not had the chance to watch the entire thing. And I realize it's only 15 minutes. It's like 13 minutes and 40 seconds or something. But I did not have time to watch the entire thing. But I did start watching the documentary, watched first couple of minutes of it. And the first person that they talk to is a 17-year-old girl who is on what they're calling probation for a seatbelt violation, where she was driving, I think she said, to the gas station, and she was not wearing her seatbelt, wound up getting pulled over, told you need to pay $41 for the seatbelt ticket. She did not have the money at the time of the court date to pay the $41 ticket. So she was told, well, JCS, that's Judicial Correction Services, they are going to handle your debt from henceforth, and you owe them $10 for their service that they're providing you. And I think she also mentioned that they're charging interest, and then there's the fee for being on probation that the state charges. So what started off as a $41 fine turns into something that's probably going to be close to $100. And that is, in my opinion, absolutely ridiculous. But the underlying question here is about the use of private industry to collect government fines. And I'll get into that later as far as, answering the whole thing of should private industry be allowed to collect government fines. But there's a petition that the people over there at Brave New Films have put up on the website. And I want to read the petition to you before getting into the actual answer about why are people on probation and what's the difference between, this thing that they're calling probation and actual probation. So the petition here says, it's time to put an end to America's new debtor prisons. Georgia and Alabama must cut all ties with an industry profiting off the poor and stop placing people on probation under the control of profit-hungry private companies. Every year, hundreds of thousands of people are sentenced to probation, sometimes for violations as simple as traffic tickets. Instead of being able to pay these fines and move on with their lives, many get sucked into spiraling debt traps they cannot escape. Here's how it works. Some counties in Georgia and Alabama let courts place people on probation under the control of for-profit companies who charge hefty fees. Too often, those least able to afford them. A small traffic violation can become hundreds and hundreds of dollars in debt. the small fine going back to the court, and the massive fees ending up in the for-profit companies' pockets. If people can't pay, they go to jail, and taxpayers will end up footing the bill for this imprisonment. For those who are barely making ends meet, the choice is between being locked up and lining the pockets of private probation companies. The private probation racket isn't benefiting society, it's only benefiting these companies' bottom line. And then they ask you to sign the petition demanding that counties and other government officials stop giving courts a green light to place people on probation under the control of private companies. And there's actually quite a difference between this that they are calling probation and what is actually probation. And to answer like the not the underlying question, but the initial question of why do these people have fines in the first place, well, I tried finding the answer as best I could. I went to the Alabama Board of Pardons and Parole, which oversees probation in Alabama. And I also went to something called the National Institute of Corrections. And what I was able to find out is not really a lot. I was able to determine the total number of people on probation in Alabama is nearly, well, and actually it's not even the total number of people, it's just the total number of felons on probation. Because apparently Alabama doesn't give you the statistic of how many people are on probation for misdemeanors or violations. So according to the Alabama Board of Pardons and Parole, there are over 64,000 adult felons that are either on probation or parole. 53,839 are on probation, 10,374 are on parole, and another 321 offenders are serving both probation and parole. Now, I was able to determine some of the statistics as far as people being incarcerated in Alabama, but again, that's not the same as why people are on parole. So I begrudgingly have to say I don't really know the answer to the initial question, but I can do my best at trying to answer the question through roundabout ways of giving information about why people are being incarcerated. And a lot of times it's not for things that have victims. It's for drug offenses. And, you know, based on the documentary that I mentioned from Brave New Films, at least one person, and I'm guessing it's more than one, but at least one person was on what they're calling probation because of a seatbelt violation. And, you know, I'll explain the difference between, you know, what they're calling probation and actual probation in just a moment. But what they're calling probation is not actually probation. It's you owe money, and because we don't want to do our own debt collecting, we're going to wind up sending you to a private company that you don't get to choose if you deal with the private company or another company that is also private, or us. We're telling you we're not acting as debt collector. Go deal with them and pay them a bunch of money. Stay tuned. There's more when we come back.
When her plush and comfy life suddenly and unexpectedly fell apart, Brooke and her dog Cloud set out to defy the odds. If this is a man's world, as they say, living on the streets is no place for a young woman. One day she awoke in the redwood forest and realized she had become a hobo, and would ultimately come to know exactly what it means to survive. How to Be a Hobo by Brooke Willett is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores. Hi, I'm Darryl W. Perry, and I need your help to give away my newest book. Yes, you heard that right. I want to give away my newest book, A Rebel's Journey. The book describes my path to the ideas of liberty, which began as a search for traditional values. I will only give away the book if I reach my fundraising goal of $2,500.
But wait! There's more.
If you donate, not only can you get the ebook and the audiobook for free, but you can get bonus audio content, including interviews with Jeffrey Tucker, Lynn Albrecht, Ben Stone, Gardner Goldsmith, and Stephen Kinsella. Or you can get a signed copy of the paperback book and more. Your donation will serve to replace the profits I would have earned through a more traditional publication of the book. The funds raised will allow me to get the book into the hands of more people and to promote the book to a wider audience. To find out more about the book or to donate, visit arebelsjourney.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
One thing that I do not have to speculate on is a brokerage company that can be trusted for purchasing precious metals. Roberts & Roberts Brokerage is that company, and they've been trusted for over 35 years. Since 1977, Roberts & Roberts has been a trusted source for buying and selling your investment-grade precious metals. They take Bitcoin for precious metal purchases and have permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. Call Roberts & Roberts Brokerage today for some knowledgeable advice on investing and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 850-478-5270 or visit them online at rrbi.co. That's rrbi.co. So based on the inmate population statistics from the Alabama Board of Pardons and Parole, there are 3,000 at the end of fiscal year 2013. There were 3,924 people that were in for murder offenses. There are another over 7,000 that are in for drug offenses. And they have these broken down into possession and distribution. So possession, it's 3,682 people. For distribution or manufacture, it's 3,524. So you have over 7,000 people that are in just for drug offenses. And then you have another 3,100 people that are in for sexual offenses. They don't specify or break down here how many of these people that are in for sex crimes are in because they actually victimized someone in a sexual manner, or how many of them are in because they were buying or selling a sexual service in violation to state law. So we don't know based on that. The rest of these are all crimes that have victims and ones that most of which are violent. So there's burglary, assault, robbery, theft, and then identity theft and forgery. That is the smallest of the number of inmates at 735. So to sort of go back, because I didn't quite finish giving the explanation about, what is actual probation versus this thing that they're calling probation, which is basically you owe us money and we're having some company act as a debt collector on our behalf and we're charging you a bunch of extra money. But we're not charging you, it's them. They're charging you. If you just would have had the money on the day you were here, then you wouldn't have to pay any of these fees. But now go deal with these people because we can. So actual real probation is when the judge says, I'm going to sentence you to X number of time in jail and X number of time on probation, where you have to go see the probation officer and you have to pee in a cup and, jump through these different hoops and hurdles. You might have to wear a leg bracelet to make sure that, you're not going where you're not supposed to and you're at home when we tell you to, and all of these other things. So actual probation is to basically keep an eye on people that might be a risk to society, but not enough of a risk to keep them in jail. And a lot of times you wind up having people that are on probation because, well, they had a joint, or they had a pill, or they had some small amount of a substance. And in a lot of cases, you have people that will wind up going back to jail because they violated probation because they had a joint or a pill or a small amount of a substance or something. And basically, you're perpetuating the prison system with all of these people that are not a danger to anyone. They just happen to have a vice that is illegal. So let me now jump over to the other report from the Alabama Board of Pardons and Parole, because there was something in the fiscal year 2014 report that I wanted to mention, so they have the number of probationers, how many of them were revoked. And this is something that caused me to sort of question the validity of the initial post, that it might be flawed statistics. So what they have here for the 2013-2014 annual report, the end of fiscal year 2014 report, there were 53,839 supervised probationers, meaning people that have to regularly go to a probation officer and do whatever, just like check in. Yeah, I didn't leave the state. I'm not selling crack anymore, whatever, and here's my urine, and I'm clean. There were 890 people in fiscal year 2014. Let me read that number again. 890 in fiscal year 2014 that were revoked on technical reasons, meaning they had dirty urine or they didn't make a payment. And this is totally different than what's in the initial post that says 1,000 people per month. Less than 1,000 people in a year and 1,000 people per month are not the same, unless maybe the Alabama Board of Parole and Pardons is not counting if somebody gets revoked for technical reasons multiple times. I don't know. But it seems hard to me, it seems hard to imagine that the same person would get revoked on technical reasons every month and that not wind up getting counted here. There were 611 people on probation that were revoked for a new offense. And this new offense, like I say, it could be something as simple as they did the same thing that got them on probation in the first place, possession of a drug or whatever. And that's generally the most common, although every now and then you will see somebody that's on probation for something and they go rob a house. But that's a lot less common than somebody that's on probation for drugs and then they get caught with drugs again. And then there were 726 people that were revoked on both a technical reason and a new offense. So again, if you add all of these numbers up, it is still less than the 1,000 people per month that is claimed by Brave New Films. So let me, when we come back in the final segment, get into the whole thing of private collections of government debt. And is that moral, and would that happen in a libertarian society? We'll discuss in just a moment.
During the 2013 Porcupine Freedom Festival, Davy Barker presented an idea for a renegade psychological experiment. Since then, he has refined his idea and put his plan and research into writing. He explains, "We aim to show the world beyond a shadow of a doubt that power corrupts absolutely and corrupt authority deserves no obedience." Authoritarian Sociopathy is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at WeUseCoins.com. That's WeUseCoins.com.
It is the year 91,001 BCE. Witness humanity's origins in Hyperchronius, a classic role-playing game for Windows PCs, with a story like no other game before. A liberty-oriented experience that is not to be missed. Go to zog.ninja to get your copy of Hyperchronius today. Use the code FPP to get $1 off. Hyperchronius, zog.ninja, code FPP.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
So one thing that, well, I'm still not sure if it would happen in a libertarian society or not, is zombies. I've never really thought about it. You know, like, in theory, zombies could happen in a libertarian society. Like, there's, you know, nothing preventing disease from happening. And it's widely thought that zombies are zombies because of some disease that they have, an infection of sorts. And, well, you can delve a little deeper into the world of zombies in Survivor Max by Davi Barker. 11-year-old Max must survive the zombie apocalypse alone in New Hampshire. The slow-moving, non-thinking, lame brains swarm his home searching for living flesh. Max must apply his Porcupine Freedom Scouts training to plan his escape, but first, he must prove that he's too smart to die. Look for Survivor Max on Facebook and Amazon, or you can read Chapter 1 for free at survivormax.com. That's survivormax.com. So the underlying question here, and I've attempted to, as best I can, answer the question about why were these people on probation in the first place. And I'll just sort of summarize. Some were on for failure to pay tickets, and in Alabama, apparently, when you can't pay a ticket, they call it probation and hand you over to this private company that acts as a debt collection agency, and then they wind up charging you incredibly high interest and fees and all of this other stuff that basically winds up making money off of poor people. Other people were on probation because they may have had a drug, or they may have actually done something that victimized somebody, but generally it's for drugs. And I'm speculating here based off of my knowledge of probation. I've tried finding statistics from the Alabama Board of Pardons that oversees the probation, but they don't have that information. And I think the reason they don't have the information is they don't want people to know the information. They don't want people to realize how broad the war on drugs actually is and how, you know, encompassing it actually is. They just want people to think that, oh, well, somebody's on probation, so therefore they're bad. And here's some numbers. And the National Institute for Corrections, that first website that I had mentioned outside of Brave New Films, they only list things as property crime, or I think the other one was personal crime. So, like, that they don't even break it down to, like, drug crimes and anything else. They're just like, oh, here you go, and property. Which seems absolutely strange to me that they would do that. But again, like, they don't want people to realize that there are people in jail right now that are in jail for harming no one. Yeah, so they have written down here, violent crime and property crime. And I guess one could say that a drug offense is property crime because your property is the crime. But when people hear the term property crime, they automatically think, or at least I do, and I'm assuming that other people's brains at least sometimes function like mine does. When I hear the term property crime, I immediately think, oh, somebody went and stole something from somebody. I don't think the property is the crime, but I'm guessing here that they're considering drug possession to be a property crime, but I don't know because they don't define their terms here anywhere. But let me go back to the underlying question. The question that I said is the underlying question. In a libertarian society, would there be, well, first off, would there be such a thing as a government-imposed fine? And secondly, would there be private companies that would be able to or required to collect the fines on behalf of the government? And this is really where like the minutia comes in, because and let me just sort of pause here to say that there are more ways that people can envision a free society than there are people who envision a free society. And I say that because I can think of about a dozen ways that things could happen absent the coercive government system that we currently have. And of the people that I know that want a freer society absent coercive government, they each can think of several different ways. But even if they only thought of one way, and I'm thinking of 12, chances are one of my ways is not going to be exactly like what everybody else is thinking. So I'm still correct in my assertion that there are more ideas on how a free society works than there are people who want a free society. And that's one of the beauties of this thought of let's build a free society, is it's not one of these we're telling you how to live. It's we're removing coercive government, or we're trying to remove coercive government so you can live how you want to, as long as you don't cause unjust harm to another person. And we can work on, like what would we do with the criminal when we get to that point. But let's answer the question based on, like the current system that we currently have, and is it really the free market in action when you have a private company collecting debts on behalf of a government? And you have to say no. You have to. And the reason I say you have to say no is because the person that owes the money does not have the choice of which collection agency to go with. They are being told your debt is being handled by fill-in-the-blank company. And fill-in-the-blank company is going to charge you this. And if you don't like it, then, well, you can either give us all the money right now, or you can go to jail and we'll hold you in jail until you can give us the money. So, in a way, it kind of is a debtor's prison, but at the same time, it's not a debtor's prison because, well, you're going to jail not because you're in debt, air quotes there. You're going to jail because you violated the terms of your probation that we put you on because you didn't have the money to give us everything today. So it, in essence, in practice, is nothing other than a debtor's prison. But in basically word art, it isn't a debtor's prison. And I further say that no, you can't claim that it's the free market in action because there's there's no competition here. There's a government agent somewhere that's making a contract with a private company, and there's no competition. It's just somebody saying, this is who you do business with now, and they're handling our debts, and if you don't like it, go to jail. Or give us all the money right now. So could it in theory happen in a freer society? Possibly, but there would need to be competition for it to actually be a free market. This has been Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online, fppradio.com.